Whenever there's a mass casualty event in the United States of America, one of the first things that people do is look for political motivations, and this is because we have a hyper-partisan online and mainstream media that is looking for any opportunity to blame the other side for the resulting deaths that we see, these tragedies across our country. But secondarily, people tend to look for if this could have been prevented, if there were warning signs or anything like that. And we spend a lot of time talking about the FBI getting a tip or the local police department getting a tip. And even though those tips appear to be most often non-actionable, a lot of people generally make hay about them. They talk about how they should have pulled this guy off the streets, taken away the guns, done whatever in order to prevent the mass tragedy that we end up seeing. However, in this incident in Illinois, you're not seeing a lot of that. As soon as it was revealed that there was no real political motivation, people seemed to drop the case. But what they didn't seem to look into is whether or not there were obvious warning signs. And the tragedy of this particular incident that cost 8 people their lives is that the warning sign was clear, obvious, and present. And if the court would have done what it needed to do, if the prosecutor would have charged the appropriate charge, 8 people could have easily been saved. But that didn't happen. The system failed, and we're going to talk about it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And thank you to the podcast listeners, Spotify, Apple, and Google's podcasting platform. So the suspect in today's story is a man called Romeo Nance. And yes, that is a mugshot of Romeo Nance. And he actually committed shootings at 3 separate locations that ultimately ended up killing 8 people, mostly women, mostly in his own family. And he wounded a 9th person at a 3rd location before ultimately ending up meeting his demise in the state of Texas, where he fled to after committing these crimes.
That neighbor tells us that victim is out of the hospital. He's doing okay, but on crutches, he says, after getting shot in the leg.
It was 9 gunshots. That's a whole clip he tried to load in this guy, and lucky that it just didn't hit no vital organs.
Curtis Ellis lives next door to the surviving victim.
Now, as you could hear from this interview from a neighbor of the surviving victim, Nance showed absolutely no mercy. He pulled up on this person, fired 9 shots, wounded him, kept firing before eventually taking off, and only by the grace of God was this person able to survive this vicious onslaught of bullets. This guy, obviously a violent person, has a violent criminal history, a relevant violent criminal history that we're going to get into in a little bit, but thankfully, again, this person survived. But I want you to see some of the surveillance video, some of the planning, the premeditation that was behind this, so you can understand the person that we're dealing with.
Well, I opened the door and I seen him hopping back up the stairs. It was like, man, I hope he's okay.
So I'm not going to lie, I also like the neighbor who was definitely not going over there, definitely not getting involved, watching this guy hobble up the stairs and thinking to himself, I hope he's okay, with the asterisk that he's definitely not going over to check because this situation is absolutely crazy in his neighborhood.
In this video, you see a red sedan. Police say Romeo Nance was behind the wheel. He passes by once, twice, then starts firing. Hits this victim in the leg.
So as you can see right here, Nance was driving around, he picked his target, this is premeditation right there, and then cold-bloodedly from his vehicle attempted to murder this individual in this neighborhood without any regard for who else he might be hitting with these bullets, which makes sense because at this point in time, he already has 8 bodies under his belt.
For a guy of his stature that doesn't really do anything, it's kind of sad to just walking out on a Sunday and you can't even go to your car without getting shot.
This after police claim Nance shot and killed members of his family on West Acres Road, about 10 minutes away. Inside one home, police found 4 females, ages 14, 16, 20, and 38, and one man, 31 years old. Across the street, they found a 35-year-old man and a 47-year-old woman. All of them shot and killed.
So as you can see, his victims range as low as age 14 all the way into the 30s. There was a 3-year-old child that was thankfully at another relative's house at the time. So thankfully, Romeo Nance wasn't able to kill this person. And after he attempted this drive-by shooting, he actually made another stop. Let me correct myself. And he killed a Nigerian man.
A 3-year-old boy was originally unaccounted for. Police found him at a relative's home nearby. At the last stop police claim Nance made before leaving Joliet to flee to Texas, we're told he shot and killed 28-year-old Toyosi Bakari, who was originally from Nigeria. He is not believed to be related to Nance at all.
Now, they're not sure what the relationship is between Nance and that Nigerian person. They don't really understand the motive behind all of these killings, but as of right now, there is an update that Nance's girlfriend is being charged because she, in some way, shape, or form, knew about these shootings, knew he was on edge or whatever, and didn't do anything or possibly aided him in getting out of the state because, again, he ultimately ended up fleeing Illinois and ending up in Texas where he met his demise. Now, look, that's who Nance is. That's what he decided to do with his worthless life, and thankfully the Texas police were able to take him, although I would hope that he would get captured and face the consequences, be brought to justice, and we can get some understanding for the motivation behind this. However, while we may never know what motivated this particular killing, we'll see how it results in terms of his girlfriend's case, and maybe she can provide some insights onto his mindset. What we do know is that there were obvious signs of this behavior, obvious signs that should have led to him being held in prison, but unfortunately he was undercharged by a district attorney, and that ultimately ended up leading to him being able to post bail, and that led to him being out on the streets, despite the fact that his court date was actually set for February 1st. Basically a week or 2 weeks after this particular incident. So all they had to do was hold him up until his court date, and 8 people would have been alive. Now, you might be asking yourself, was the incident before that he was arrested on really that closely related to these actions? Is it really a warning sign that we should be paying attention to? Is it really worth holding this man in jail awaiting trial for almost a year in order to prevent him from committing this atrocity, this crime? And the answer to that question is definitely 100% yes.
This guy wasn't messing around just shooting at people. He was trying to kill people.
You see, in 2023, Romeo Nance, age 23, was taken to the Will County Jail on a $100,000 bond for his arrest warrant on charges of aggravated discharge of a firearm, aggravated assault, and aggravated unlawful use of a weapon. On top of that, he got a reckless discharge of a firearm charge. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, a $100,000 bond, that's actually a pretty hefty bond. That's a lot of money that you need to put up in order to get somebody out of jail. And honestly, he's being charged with this unlawful discharge, reckless discharge. There's an assault in there. So probably he was menacing people with a firearm, and then he just fired some shots randomly, and it's no big deal. It's not that connected, and I'm stretching a little bit to say that this could have been indicative of a pattern of behavior and worthy of him being held in prison or held in jail pre-trial, at least until we adjudicated this particular case. Now, you could say that, but if you know anything about this channel and you heard me say he was undercharged, you know that would be definitely wrong, because what Nance did in this particular incident was that he got into a road rage altercation with a woman, 36 years old, who was driving a Buick. And in response to this road rage altercation, Nance thought it would be a good idea to fire multiple shots at this 36-year-old woman, thus committing the crime that should have been charged as attempted murder. And yet he wasn't charged with that. So even though a $100,000 bond sounds pretty bad for an unlawful discharge of a firearm, in reality, he didn't commit just an unlawful discharge of a firearm. He committed attempted murder. He tried to kill somebody, fired multiple shots into her vehicle because of a dispute on a road. That's what Nance was actually doing on January 26, 2023, and he should have been held in jail pre-trial accordingly. And also, while $100,000 is definitely a big number, believe me, I wouldn't say no to $100,000, he only had to post 10% of that in order to get out of jail. So it was $100,000 of an unsecured bond, and his sister was able to post that bond for him in March, which ultimately led to him being out on the streets in order to commit this crime. But what about his previous criminal history? Did he have other issues in his past that would indicate that maybe, just maybe, we should have held this person pre-trial? Now, by the way, I think that's enough. When you attempt murder, when you fire fire a bunch of shots into a random person's vehicle because you got angry, I think that's indicative that you might be the kind of person who would use a gun to fire a bunch of shots into somebody if you were angry or upset. But there's actually a more lengthy criminal history that would indicate that this guy definitely should have been held without bond pre-trial to prevent the 8 people who were killed from being killed. So one of the indicators that Nance might not be fit for society was that he was actually charged with a misdemeanor during the arrest for that particular incident because he broke away and fled from the officer during that arrest. He also had the handgun illegally and was charged with that. And he was also charged with assaulting an inmate while he was in jail before he got bail. And he was charged with a felony after he damaged a glass portion of a cell door on February 15th, again before he was released on bail. In 2019, Nance was charged with robbery and theft of cell phones with an unlawful possession of marijuana charge. And of course, he got a sweetheart plea deal where he only pled guilty to the marijuana charge. The others were dropped, and he got 2 years of probation for that. So here we have a guy with a criminal history. Here we have a guy who was arrested less than a year prior for attempting a murder with an unlicensed handgun on a random person where he fired multiple shots into that person's vehicle over a petty road rage dispute. Upon arrest, he resisted arrest from that officer. When he was sent to jail, he assaulted somebody in the jail. When he was in his jail cell, he attempted to break the glass of that jail cell. So here's a person with a criminal history who always seems to be escalating their violence no matter what situation they put him in. And guess what? They still decided to grant him an unsecured bond. They still decided that attempted murder, that's too high of a charge for attempted murder. They downcharged him, and that resulted in him being out and 8 people being killed. 8 lives being snuffed out because Nance needed a chance. And if you read the transcript, you read what his lawyer argued for him, they said that, oh, he was such a good boy. He was a father of a 3-year-old at the time, and that's why he needed to be released. Now, I'm curious if this was the same 3-year-old that was thankfully staying at a relative's place during the time of the killings, but yeah. I don't give a damn that Nance fathered a 3-year-old at his young age. He clearly and obviously was unfit for society, and the fact that they decided not to charge him as seriously as they could have led ultimately to 8 people being killed in a damn near identical kind of incident. Remember, he decided for whatever reason that he was going to kill the members of his family, and then after that, he decided to shoot additional random people just because he wanted to inflict as much damage as possible. And when he fled, which by the way, fleeing is one of the reasons why you would hold somebody pre-trial, he went to Texas and he resisted arrest over there, and that ultimately ended up leading to his death. So 9 people are dead total because this guy was given a break that he didn't deserve. 9 people, including the criminal, are gone because that was seen as the better, more merciful option. Look, I know that this case is never going to get the national press that it deserves. I know that politically motivated mass shootings are always going to take precedence over this, and there are some reasons for that make sense. But in reality, these kind of incidents are more common. In reality, over and over again, it appears that our criminal justice system fails to hold people with obvious signs of dangerous behavior accountable, and that results in sometimes people getting killed. And in this particular incident, 8 people were murdered by this person, and it could have easily been prevented if you just took his previous instance with the seriousness that it demanded. If you just realized that this person who is continuing to offend while they're in jail is not likely to be fit for the outside world, 8 people would still be alive to this very day. But hey, those are just my thoughts. That's just my opinion. I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about a tragic story that I think could have been prevented. Till next time.